Hello there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm back with another episode of Aha! I'm changing it up on you here. I have been calling this Shadow the Demon Lord Talk or Shadow Talk for the last 100 episodes, but this is the start of a new century's worth of episodes, so we're going to change it up. We're going to change it to Shadow Talk. And the reason we're doing that is because of Shadow the Weird Wizard, which is coming down the pipeline sometime this year, and hopefully sooner rather than later. And so I want this channel to be available for me to be able to talk about that game as well, because I fully intend to buy into Shadow of the Weird Wizard and play the hell out of it. So there you go. So we are now going to be calling this, we being me, Shadow Talk. So welcome to Shadow Talk, and I'm DM Nell, your lovely host, and you can expect all of the same high quality production value with me here in my unfinished basement, in my little gaming corner that I'm allowed. And I am, not a fan of editing, so this is my stream of thought, spewed from my face hole, and hopefully it is something that will be of use to you, because my goal here is to make videos that help you understand and want to play Shadow the Demon Lord. So I've been doing that for 100 videos, but starting with this video, what I'd like to do is a little bit deeper dive into the rules and mechanics of the game to help people that are wanting to come over to Shadow the Demon Lord from some other tabletop RPG know what they're getting into and how to play the game right. So starting today, I'm going to pick up Chapter 1. I'll start on Chapter 1, and I'm going to talk about Ancestries. So buckle up, listeners. Get this ball rolling here as soon as I find it. Okay, so Chapter 1 starts off with Ancestries, and Chapter 1 is character creation. The first step in creating a character is to create an ancestry. So there are lots of moving parts in this game that kind of overlap. So a lot of the things that are talked about in Ancestries will be covered in more detail in later videos. So just kind of bear with me at this point. I'll try to expand where it makes sense in discussing these, but I'm going to leave the detailed discussions for later videos. Okay. Ancestries. So when you start your character in Shadow the Demon Lord, you start by choosing an ancestry. Now I'm only covering the things in the core rulebook. There are a ton of supplements that expand the ancestries and various rules in the game. I'll cover those in due time. But for now, I'm just going to cover the information in the core rulebook, and there are 6 ancestries in the core rulebook: humans, changelings, clockworks, dwarfs, goblins, and orcs. So I'll talk about each of those in detail. The ancestries are formatted the same way, so they all have a template from which to build your character. The template includes the character's attributes. Their attributes are their strength, agility, intellect, and will. Now, other role-playing games have a couple more attributes like constitution and charisma, or something similar. In this game, constitution is kind of bundled into strength, and charisma is not really used. Any type of social game that comes up in the course of play is handled through your intellect and or your will attributes. So you really don't have a charisma score. Instead, if you want to make your person butt ugly, or if you want to make them a runway model, you are free to do so. It just doesn't have necessarily a mechanical bearing on the game. You and your DM can kind of flesh out how that affects gameplay. All right, so each ability or each attribute or ability score has a score ranging from 1 to 20. Average people have a score of 10, and then when you start your character, you can adjust one of those scores by 1. You can increase one of those scores by 1, I should say, by decreasing another score by 1. So if you want to be a warrior, you're eventually wanting to play a warrior. So you want a high strength score. You can cannibalize 1 point of your agility, or 1 point of your intellect, or 1 point of your will, and add it to your strength score when you're creating your character. but you can only do that once. So you want to do that probably as you are first starting your character. And then your ability scores increase as you gain levels. You also have an ability modifier that goes along with your attributes. Your ability modifier is your ability score minus 10. So if your ability score is 12, let's say you have a 12 strength, then your strength modifier is going to be plus 2. If you have a strength score of 8, then your ability modifier for your strength is going to be minus 2. So it's your ability score minus 10. Then you have other characteristics. These include defense, which is basically your armor class. Your health, which is basically your maximum hit points. Healing rate, which is kind of sort of like your hit dice. Perception, which is like perception in D&D, but this is its own characteristic in Shadow of the Demon Lord. You have your size, which, you can start off either as 1/2 or you can go up to size 2. Then you have your speed. That tells you how fast you can move or how far you can move during your turn. Your power score is an indicator of how much magical power you can wield. Damage is how much damage you've taken. Insanity is something that you can accumulate as you gain play or as you play. And corruption is also something that you can accumulate as you play. So your ancestry tells you what these numbers are. You don't roll 3d6 or 4d6 or anything like that. These are all determined ahead of time for each ancestry, and then you make modifications. The sidebar here has a bunch of languages. I'm not going to go into each of these languages. You can read them for yourself, but you have your common tongue, which is what everybody talks or speaks. Dark speech is kind of like the tongue of Mordor, which we shall not utter here. Then you have Dwarvish or Elvish, or High Archaic is kind of like Latin, and a few other languages. So you can customize these, or you can customize your character by choosing languages as your ancestry allows, which we will see here shortly. Then you have your character sheet. So if we take a quick peek at your character sheet, you can see that you have space at the top for your name, description, your ancestry, what you choose, the level you are, your novice path, your expert path, and your master path. Then your professions. Professions take the place of skills in this game. So if you're wanting to track something, you're in the forest, your game master or your dungeon master is going to ask you, well, do you have any professions that would have granted you any ability to do so? And then you would say, well, I was a scout in the army when I was drafted. And so your game master might give you a boon for a tracking check. But there's no actual skills in this game. You just go by your professions, and between you and your dungeon master, you determine if you have any boons or banes as a result of what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, so then in the middle here, you have where you put your attributes. And in this inverted pentagram, you have your strength, intellect, agility, will. You have your perception score up here. It's tied to your intellect. You have insanity, corruption. You have your defense. You have your speed and your size. And then the other little circles around here are where your ability modifiers will go. You have space over here for magic. If you choose a spellcaster, you have a talent. Each ancestry and each path that you choose. Path being the equivalent to a character class in other role-playing games. Provide your character with talents. Talents are just special abilities that your characters accumulate as they gain levels. So your talents are something that you can list over here on the left-hand side. Then at the bottom you have place for your weapons and your equipment. Just love this character sheet. All right, getting back to your ancestries. We already talked about languages and professions and your talents. You also gain a level 4 benefit. Whenever any character that reaches level 4, and you level up as a group here, so everybody's always going to be the same level. When your group reaches level 4, then you gain a level 4 benefit from your ancestry. Excuse me, and I will show you what that looks like here in a moment. And then you have some randomization tables to help flesh out your character. So let's just kind of jump into human and show you what that looks like. So it gives you human background. So just real quick and dirty, in the core campaign setting, humans are the most populous of the Ancestries. And humans are kind of like humans here on Earth, although it gives you the option to make humans a little bit weirder. You know, you can have green-skinned or blue-skinned or orange-skinned humans. I tend to keep my humans as pretty much what you would see in the real world. So you know, your sizes can be anywhere from 3 to 7 feet. You can weigh anywhere from 50 to 500 pounds, and most humans live to be about 70. Kind of talks about how humans are so successful because they believe in strength in numbers, and they are very diverse. Talks about their religious inclinations, which we'll get more into religion in a future chapter. But for now, you can just suffice it to say they can be part of the cult of the new god. They can worship the old faith or practice witchcraft. Those are the kind of like the primary religions, although there are others. And it gives you some names that you can model your character off of. All right, so then we have the template here. So every ancestry has a template that looks like this, and it has the randomization tables afterwards. So when you're creating a human, you start off with a strength score of 10, agility score of 10, intellect score of 10, and a will score of 10. All humans start off with that same template. You customize it two ways. The first way is by cannibalizing one attribute to add to another, which I mentioned already earlier. So if you want a higher strength, then you cannibalize a point from one of your other attributes, and you add that point to your strength. The other way you customize your human is by the second sentence here, which says choose one attribute and increase it by 1. So if you are building on your strength by cannibalizing, you can also build on it by using this additional choose one attribute and increase it by 1. So you could start your human with a strength of 12, but one of your other attributes will be reduced to 9 because you're cannibalizing it. Okay, so all humans start off with those attribute scores and those ways of modifying. Then every character, well, let me not say that. So perception equals your intellect scores for human. Every character's defense equals your agility score with the exception of Clockworks, which I'll get to. Every character's health equals their strength score. Every character's healing rate equals 1/4 your health rounded down. Humans can be size 1/2 or 1. Speed is 10, power is 0, damage is 0, insanity is 0, and corruption is 0. That just means that all those things start off at 0, but they can increase as you level up. Language and professions. For humans, you speak the common tongue. You can speak either one additional language or add a random profession. Then at level 4, you can be, or when you become level 4, I should say, then you gain +5 to your health, and you can either learn one spell if you're a spellcaster at that point, or you gain the determined trait. So this trait is listed down here, and it states that when you roll a 1 on a die from a boon, you can re-roll the die and choose to use the new number. We'll talk more about boons and banes in a later chapter. All right, so then you have your randomization tables. Now, I tend to want to choose my character's characteristics, but if you want to randomize it, that's what these tables excel at. So there's a bunch of tables, one for background, one for religion, one for age, one for build, and one for appearance. And that's it. Once you have all those things figured out, you just put it on your character sheet as you go, and you're done. You can build a character in 5 to 10 minutes. All right, so then the next character here is a changeling. So a changeling is a fey creature. So fairies like to steal babies to either turn them into fairies or to make them a part of a tithe to hell. The fey creatures have to give the Lord of Hell a certain number of souls as a tithe, and so they steal babies. They steal human babies in order to do that. So in order to keep humans from, waging war on the fairy, what these fae do is they create a fake baby out of mud and sticks, and they infuse some magic into this fake baby. making it look like a real baby. It acts and moves and acts and for all intents and purposes is a real baby initially. But then that magic tends to dissipate and it becomes a pile of mud after a few weeks. But by that point, the fairy creatures are long gone with the real baby, leaving the human parents to grieve at the loss of their child. However, some of these mud and stick babies keep their magic. They don't. The magic never goes away, and so these become changelings. And these changelings have the ability to change their appearance, which we will show you the mechanics behind that here in a moment. So the starting attributes for a changeling is they have a strength of 9, agility of 10, intellect of 10, and a will of 10. Their perception score equals their intellect score plus 1. And as with the others, defense equals the agility score, health equals strength, healing rate is a quarter of the health rounded down. They start at size 1, they have a speed of 10, and power of 0, damage 0, insanity 0, and corruption 0. Now, I forgot to mention a speed of 10. In this game, that means 10 yards. Each increment of movement in this game is measured in yards. However, you know, you can play with that if you want to. If you want to make it feet, I don't think I'll break anything. If you want to make it just squares on a grid, because I play on a grid, then you can do that. But at any rate, in the game rules, it talks about the range increments for movement and other range increments as yards. Okay, then as a changeling, your language and professions, you speak the common tongue. You are immune from damage from disease and the charmed affliction and the diseased affliction. However, you do suffer from iron vulnerability, so you become impaired while in contact with iron. Some of these game terms will make more sense when we get into the play the game section of the rules, but for now, just kind of stick with me here. Impaired is a condition or an affliction, I should say. Afflictions are the equivalent to conditions in D&D. All right, so shadow sight is another feature that another trait that you gain. You see into areas obscured by shadows as if they were lit. So in this game, you either have normal vision, shadow sight, which is a little bit better than normal vision, but you still have to have some light in order to be able to see. And then you have dark sight, which allows you to see in complete darkness. Changelings have shadow sight. Humans have normal sight. Steal identity. All right, so this is where you actually change your shape. Now, using this trait, you can use an action to alter your appearance to match that of a target living creature that you can see within short range. The target must be size 1 or 1/2 and have a humanoid shape of flesh and blood. Your body changes so that you look like the target, though your clothing and your possessions remain unchanged. The effect lasts until you use this talent again. If you become incapacitated or touch an object made of iron, you immediately revert to your normal appearance. So you can shapeshift, but you can't shapeshift into like monsters or things like that. You have to shapeshift into another humanoid creature. Then at level 4, a level 4 expert changeling gains +4 to their health, and they can either learn one spell or they can gain the Doppelganger's Advantage trait. The Doppelganger's Advantage allows them to use a triggered action instead of an action to use the Steal Identity. In addition, they can have a boon to attack rolls against the creature that they are imitating. All right, so then you have all these randomization tables that you can randomize or choose to flesh out your changeling character. Changelings also have a quirk. So since they are created, that means that they have a little bit of a quirk that kind of gives away their true nature. So you can pick one of those traits or randomize it as you and your DM decide. All right, so then we have clockworks. So clockworks are part of the game, and a lot of people wonder, well, does that mean it's a steampunk setting? It's not a steampunk setting. There are steampunk elements in the game, but it's a dial that you can dial up or you can dial down. If you don't like steampunk, you can dial it way down and just have clockworks be these weird robotic like mechanical people that are in the world because somebody managed to create them and infuse them with magic. Or you can go full bore with clockworks and have them be a large part of society. It's totally up to you. But clockworks are mechanical people made from metal, plating, gears, wires, and bits of spring and cogs to which souls are bound. So they are considered living creatures while they are active. However, they can become inactive, which I'll get to here in just a moment. So a clockwork template here starts with a strength of 9, agility of 8, an intellect of 9, and a will of 9, which are not great starting scores, but you modify those when you customize your character with the randomization tables. Your perception equals your intelligence score, your defense is 13, your health equals your strength score, and your healing rate is 1/4 your health. You have size 1, speed of 8, and power of 0, damage 0, insanity 0, and corruption of 0. You speak the common tongue, you're immune to a bunch of stuff because you're a freaking robot. So you're immune to disease, poison, sleep, diseased, fatigued, and poisoned afflictions. You have a key. So just to boil this down and without reading all of this, as long as your key is turning, you are active and a living creature. When your key winds down, then you become an object. So you have two stat blocks here. You have your normal living creature stat block, which I've been reading, and then you have your object form, which is here below. If your key stops turning, and it stops turning because of certain things that happen in the game, if you become incapacitated, your key stops turning. You become incapacitated when your damage score equals your health score. So normally, non-clockworks will go unconscious at that point, but what happens to a clockwork is their key winds down, so they essentially become unconscious because they become an object at that point. There are other things that can cause the key to wind down as well. And, as long as you're not incapacitated, another one of your companions can turn your key and activate you again. You can never turn your own key. The clockworks are built so that your key is out of your reach, so you are reliant upon somebody else to turn your key and reactivate you. You have a mechanical body, so you're not, you don't eat, you don't drink, and you don't breathe. You can't be transformed into an undead creature, and your mechanical body makes it impossible for you to swim, so you just sink. Then you have your object form. Your object form you only use when you become incapacitated or when your key stops turning and you become an object. So I'm not going to read through all this, but basically, just to summarize it, once you become an object, then all of your other attributes become null and void, and you go by these attributes. So you have a defense of 5, your health is only 15. Once your health once your object form damage reaches 15, then you become destroyed. So you don't want to stay in your object form for very long if you can help it. You only have strength and agility, and those scores are 0. You cannot be affected by anything that affects your intellect or your will. You have a speed of 0. You really can't do anything as an object. You're immune to pretty much anything that affects your will, intellect, or your perception. Any afflictions that you had when you were alive are suppressed while you are in object form, and then they become active again when your key is turned again. As an object, you can't use actions or triggered actions. You are basically a statue. While you're an object, the magic that is holding and binding your soul to the form starts to fail. So you have to, at the end of each round, you have to roll a d6 and consult the chart here. If you roll a 1, you explode. If you roll anywhere between a 2 and a 5, you suffer magical failure. If you get this 3 times, then you become an object permanently. If you roll a 6, then you shake it off and you are no longer incapacitated. But you remain an object until somebody cranks your key. Wind the clock. While you're an object, any creature that can reach you can use an action and twist your key. So I already talked about that. And then repair damage. If somebody has a toolbox and knows how to repair clockworks, then they can heal damage on your form of 1d6 plus 1 damage. Now, clockworks can heal naturally, just like any creatures can, because they are living creatures while they are active. But while they're an object, then they can be repaired by somebody with a toolkit and knowledge on how to repair clockworks. At 4th level, clockworks become expert clockworks, and they gain +5 to their health. They can choose to learn either a new spell if they are a spellcaster, or they can grind the gears. Grind the gears means that they can increase the number of actions they can use on their turn by 1. So basically you go into overdrive and you can do extra things, but at the end of your round you have to roll a d6, and if you roll an odd number, then you become an object. So you are risking becoming an object by gaining the ability in a round to do more things, which can be kind of cool, but it can also be kind of scary. Now to customize your clockwork, you want to look at the randomization tables, and again, up to you and your DM as to whether you actually want to randomize or if they will allow you to choose. But specifically, the clockwork purpose modifies your attributes. So if you look at these, you can modify your strength or agility, intellect, or your will score by choosing one of those purposes for your clockwork. You can also choose your clockwork form, which affects your clockwork size. You can be a clockwork of 1/2 and can fly, or you can be a clockwork of a normal size, or it can be a clockwork of a size 2. So all those things are possible. You have the dwarf, and the dwarf is your typical dwarf, what you would imagine from any fantasy game. Start off with a strength of 10, agility 9, intellect of 10, and will of 10. Perception equals intellect score +1. Defense equals agility. Health equals strength score +4. So, they start off with a little bit more health. Healing rate is equal to 1/4 your health rounded down. Size is 1/2. Speed is 8. Power 0. Damage 0. Insanity 0. Corruption 0. They start off speaking the common tongue, and they can speak, read, and write in Dwarfish. Now, unless this game tells you you can speak, read, or write, you can't. You may be able to speak it, but you're not assumed to be able to read and write. You also have a hated creature, and you can choose that from the table below. And you have a robust constitution, so you take half damage from poison, and you make challenge rolls with 1 boon to avoid or remove the poison affliction. As a 4th level dwarf, you gain +6 to your health, and you also either learn a spell or you gain Shake It Off trait. Shake It Off means that you can use an action to heal damage equal to your healing rate and remove one of the following afflictions: fatigued, impaired, or poisoned. Once you use this talent, you can't use it again until you have a rest. So dwarves are tough. Here's the dwarf hatred table, so you can choose one of those to hate on. And that's it for dwarves. Goblins are fun, wacky creatures. They're normally bad guys in other games, but in this game, they are a player character. Goblins used to be fairy creatures, but the fairy queen was offended by them, booted them out, and made them mortal. And so now they live in the mortal world, and they just kind of live in the places where other people don't want to live. And that's because they tend to have weird habits and disgusting. They like to take disgusting jobs. So they tend to gravitate towards jobs that dirty jobs, basically. So they work in the sewers, or they're like trash men, or things like that. They have bizarre appearances. They can have pig snouts. They can have fangs, horns, warts, and stuff like that. And they tend to have weird habits. So they might keep some of their excrement in a jar, or their boogers, or whatever. So a goblin is created with a strength of 8, an agility of 12, intellect of 10, and a will of 9. Their perception equals intellect +1. Their defense is equal to their agility. Their health equals their strength score. Healing rate equals to 1/4 of their health rounded down. They start at size 1/2. Speed of 10. Power 0. Damage 0. Insanity 0. Corruption 0. They start off with the Common Tongue and Elvish as their languages. They are immune from damage from disease, charmed, and disease afflictions. And they have iron vulnerability, just like the changelings do. They also have shadow sight, like the changelings do, and they have the sneaky trait, which allows them to become hidden or move silently by making an agility challenge roll with 1 boon. A 4th level expert goblin gains health +4, and they learn a spell if they're a spellcaster, or they gain the spring away attribute or trait, which allows them to, if they are attacked by somebody and that somebody misses, then they can use a triggered action to get away from that creature without triggering a free attack, which is like attack of opportunity. All right, so here are the randomization tables for the goblin, and then we get to orcs. So orcs are created creatures like in Lord of the Rings. They started off as a creature known as a Jotun, which is a giantish creature that lives in the far south Arctic lands. And at some point, the Jotun were at war with the Empire. The Empire managed to capture a bunch of these Jotun and use their dark wizards used their magic to transform these Jotun into orcs, which are smaller, size 1 creatures, but they're still powerfully built. And they are bound to the service of the Empire. So they were created as a slave race. But recently, the magic that bound them to the service of the Empire was broken, and so now they are no longer slave to the Empire, and are free to determine their own destiny. So that's why they can be a player character. Orcs start off with a strength of 11, agility of 10, intellect of 9, and a will of 9. So they're physically powerful. They have their perception is equal to the intellect plus 1. Defense is their agility score. Health is their strength score. Healing rate is equal to 1/4 of their health rounded down. They are a size 1 creature, but they have a speed of 12, so they're pretty quick. Power 0, damage 0, insanity 0, but they do start off with 1 corruption. Doesn't really affect them at the start of the game, but the more corruption you gain, the more likely you are to gain a marker corruption. So it just kind of makes it moves them down that track faster. They start off knowing Common Tongue and the Dark Speech, and they also have Shadow Sight. At level 4, they gain 6 health, and they can either learn a spell if they're a spellcaster, or they gain the Rising Fury trait, which basically allows them to, when they take damage, they make their next attack roll with 1 boon. We'll talk about boons and banes more in the playing the game section. Then you have the randomization tables. So that is it for all of the ancestries. So we'll get into the professions and finish out this chapter in my next video. So I want to thank you for watching. Again, if you like the videos, please subscribe to them. That helps me to my videos to be more visible for people that are searching for alternatives to the big gorilla in the room, which is D&D. And you know, the more subscribers I have, the more my videos become popular and are come up on searches for D&D alternatives. So anyway, I'm stumbling through my words, which means it's time for me to get the hell out. So I'm wrapping it up there. Thanks for watching. Hail to the Demon Lord. How do I turn this damn thing off?